Good morning again, and welcome. This morning again, we're going to have another look at hope in the Bible, and this time we're just going to move forward into the life of Jesus. And Jesus is the author and perfecter of our faith. He is the one who grows us. If we are willing. He's the one who matures us if we allow him to do the work in us, and we surrender those things to him. So this morning, let's just pray, and then we'll speak some more. Father, I thank you that today is a new day, that this is the day that you have made, that we will rejoice and be glad in it. And Father, thank you for your word. I thank you that Jesus came to bring hope to each of us. And so this morning, I just pray that you will give us ears to hear what you have to say to us. Lord, that perhaps where there's stuff in our ears, maybe physically, but also perhaps spiritually, that you would clean that out so that we're able to hear you very clearly today. And so we just want to commit this time to you now for the sake of the name Jesus and his kingdom. So we're just going to have a look, really our passage this morning is from Matthew 12. So if you've got a Bible, you might like to look that up. And Matthew 12, 15 to 26 is where we're going to have a look today. And so what we see in this passage is that Jesus is ministering to people in various places. And he had just come from a meeting in the synagogue, where he healed a man with a withered hand. So a synagogue is where the Jewish men would meet, and they would, if they were there had to be a certain number of men over 12 in order to form a synagogue. So they had the temple, which was based in Jerusalem, but then outside of that, as long as they had enough numbers of men, then there could be a synagogue formed. And so here we see in Matthew 12 that Jesus had just been in the synagogue on the Sabbath day, which was the holy day in Israel and for the Jewish people. And Jesus had just healed a man with a withered hand, and the religious leaders of the day had set out to conspire to kill Jesus. And so in verse 15 is where we're going to pick this up, and it says, Jesus, aware of this, withdrew from there, and many followed him, and he healed them all. Very interesting, that, isn't it? That Jesus was not only aware of their motives and what they were conspiring to do, but he withdrew from that place, and there was many people followed him as well. And he healed them all. It doesn't say that he healed some of them. He said that he healed them all and ordered them not to make him known. He didn't want to just become a circus. He didn't want to become somebody just on the street making a noise and all the rest of it. But he was about his Father's business. He was about the kingdom of heaven. And so what we see is that Jesus doesn't want to turn this thing into just a complete, like a sideshow kind of thing, for those that know what a sideshow is. But there was not Jesus was not about making a big show of himself, but he was about doing the work of the Father. And so this is where we're at now. So in verse 16, we see, and he ordered them not to make him known. This was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah. And Isaiah is one of the prophets in the Old Testament. And here we can see the link, or another link, between the Old and the New Testament. It's very important to understand what the links are between the Old and New Testament. And there's some very important things that we see in the Old Testament that are then revealed in the New Testament. And it says here, "Behold my servant whom I've chosen, my beloved, with whom my soul is pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. He will not quarrel or cry aloud, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not quench, until he brings justice to victory, and in his name the Gentiles will hope." And so that passage there, again, we just see that this is an Old Testament passage where it's talking about the coming Messiah and what he will do. And so we see there, even as Jesus fulfilled this, that a bruised reed he will not break, nor a smouldering wick he will not quench. And we see in here, what he's talking about here is people that are in a fragile position, people that are just really at a very bad point in their life, people that are really struggling. And so when you see, like if you have a bushfire or a wildfire, as it's called in some places, the whole bush is alight and the flames are just going, and it's just, you find it very hard to stop. And what Jesus is saying here, or what the Old Testament is saying about Jesus here, is that he is not going to make it. In verse 19, he will not quarrel or cry aloud, and nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. So he's not going to stand on his soapbox. He's not going to make a big scene, but that he will get about and do his Father's business. And so in a bruised reed he will not break, nor a smouldering wick he will not quench. So a bruised reed is something that's been buffeted around by the wind, and perhaps had some other animals or whatever push through, and the bruised reed is bent over. It's bruised. It's not standing straight. And so what we see here is that it's saying that Jesus will not break that bruised reed. And so it's a picture of us, or a smouldering wick. So a smouldering wick is just where the flame's gone out, where the life has gone out of that candle. And so we see there that it's just the absolute last thing. And what we would say, perhaps in Australia, is that when we're down, Jesus doesn't kick us in the guts. And so what we see here in this verse 20 here is that Jesus, when you're down and things are very, very tough, where perhaps you feel that your life is just about being totally snuffed out, like the smouldering wick, Jesus does not put you out. Jesus does not do that. His purpose is completely different. And we see there in the end of verse 20, it says that until he brings justice to victory, and in his name the Gentiles will hope. So the Gentiles those that are not of the not Israelites, not Jews, and so that is a Gentile. So I'm a Gentile, and so this picture here that we see that Paul is talking about in in Matthew that we see here is the passage in Isaiah that is referring to Jesus. And you know, in this time, I've put my faith and my hope in Jesus, and that he will bring justice to victory. And so that's where I'm at. Then what we see here in verse 22, so after this little interlude here, we see from the prophet Isaiah, and then it goes on and it says in verse 22, then a demon-oppressed man who was blind and mute brought to him, and he healed him, so that the man spoke and saw. And all the people were amazed and said, can this be the son of David? But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, it's only Beelzebul, the prince of demons, that this man casts out demons. Knowing their thoughts, he said to them, every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. And if Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? So we see in this instance, there was a man who was just being oppressed by the devil, by demons, and so Jesus brought healing to his life as well. And so it's very interesting. We're talking about bruised reeds and smouldering wicks, and this man here, I would suggest, is one of those. His smouldering wick, that he was blind, he was mute. That's probably since birth, and but may have been at some other point, but he may have opened doors to demons. He may have done all sorts of things, but it just says here that he is a demon-oppressed man and was blind and mute. So he was blind, he couldn't see, and he was mute, he couldn't speak. And Jesus healed him as well. It's particularly interesting that the passage just before this talks about, and Jesus healed them all. And then when he went to the synagogue, he healed the man with the withered hand. And here there's a particular note of this gentleman who was mute and blind. And so we see here that Jesus has authority over the spiritual realm as well. We see here that Jesus was able to heal this man, and it was very interesting that the people were amazed, and yet the religious leaders of the day, the ones who should have known better, because they, in their own way, before Jesus came, they were involved in some form of deliverance where they would deal with demons. And yet here they said, it's only by Beelzebub. They're actually accusing Jesus of being involved with demonic activity. Very interesting, isn't it, that somebody who's come to set people free, to bring life, to bring freedom from the demonic realm, to to really bring about a restoration in somebody's life is being called by the religious leaders, the prince of demons, and being involved in the demonic realm. And then Jesus responds to them. He knows what's going on, and he says to them, because it says there, he knows their thoughts in verse 25. He says that he knew what they were thinking. And so every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. That is a particular warning, I believe, not only to the people at the time, but also to us today, that kingdoms and organisations even of countries that are divided against themselves, they will fall. And yet a kingdom or a country, a people group that is really united in their purpose will stand. And it says there that if Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? Now, I do happen to know that that certain other religions other than Christian, they are involved perhaps in some form of demonic deliverance or demonic suppression, if you like, and we'll call it, that's probably the best way, of suppression. And so with that, what you will find is that without Christ and these situations arise, you'll find that it is a kingdom against kingdom. It is the one demon casting out another demon of lesser rank in these things. So it's very important that with Jesus, that we actually understand that he's actually from the kingdom of God, that he's from the kingdom of light, that he came to cast out darkness. And so he's saying that here in verse 26, that kingdoms that are divided against themselves are on very, very shaky ground. And when they come into assault, when they come into having attack against them, that they will fall. They can't hold themselves because they cannot resist the onslaught of the enemy. And so this is very important for Christians, is that and nations as well, to be of one mind, to be not divided against, but to have a singleness of purpose. And so what we, in our world around us, we see all sorts of things where countries are beginning to get very unstable, and we see that there's within those countries, there's very, very, they're not of one purpose. They are divided against themselves in all sorts of different ways. And one of the old sayings is divide and conquer. And so when you see these things happen, when there's division beginning to occur, and it doesn't matter whether it's in a country or whether it's in a church, whether it's in a body of believers somewhere, when you have a division like that, that organisation, that country is on very, very shaky ground. And when the enemy attacks, they will fall. And so that's just the way that it is. There's no stability there. So I would just really encourage you today to put your hope in Jesus, that he is the one who is able to deal with the demonic realm. If you're having issues, if you're being oppressed like this man who was blind and mute, then Jesus is able to deal with that. There was Jesus said in another place that he came to destroy the works of the devil. That he came to destroy the works of the devil. And as a believer in Jesus, as one who is a Jesus follower, then my trust is in him, that he is who he said he is, and that he does what he said he will do. And so as a follower of Jesus, then we also are called to destroy the works of the devil. And, you know, if we go back into Ephesians again and have a look at that verse there that says, "For our war is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers." So our hope is in Jesus, and Jesus came that he will bring hope not only to the Jews but also to the Gentiles as well, that the Holy Spirit is upon him, that justice will be done. And as I've been reading over the last few weeks, really, in the Psalms, what I see is that the wickedness and righteousness, there's always been a battle going on, but in the end, righteousness will prevail. Righteousness wins, despite perhaps what it looks like now. And so I just really would like to encourage you to live a righteous life, and you do that by surrendering your life to the only one who was fully righteous, who's fully holy and fully pure, and that is Jesus. So I'd like to just encourage you this morning to do that. If there's anybody who would like prayer for some health issues, some other things perhaps that's going on in your life, then please leave a comment. You can there's an email address there that you can contact us on. And so I just look forward to seeing what God will do, not only in your life, but also in the lives of those around you and in the lives of those countries, really, that perhaps are really struggling at this time. And I just encourage people to really turn your eyes on Jesus, seek after him, and he will bring life, he will bring justice and righteousness. His righteousness will reign. So let's just pray. Father, I thank you for your blessings to us. I thank you for this day. And Lord, I just pray that you would help us to carry these things that you've spoken to us, to ruminate on them, to think on them, to meditate on them, Father, and to claim the promises, Lord, that you have set before us. So I just pray these things for the sake of the name of Jesus. Amen.
I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship